Are you kidding
Oh,
me?
yeah,
They're
the fact-
sensitizing freaking James Bond.
No,
What?
James Bond is dead. He's
Oh.
incompatible with woke values. He's not he's a womanizer.
Oh,
He's a
you know-
globe-trotting
you know-
spy. He can't.
You know what's weird? I watched the last one they made, and there's all that controversy. They're like, oh, they're replacing James Bond 007 with a woman, and they like had all this backstage like BS stuff going on. I watched the movie. It's barely even a plot point. It wasn't nearly as offensive as all the BS talking points about it beforehand.
See,
No,
I grew
but
up with
that's
the
kind of
Pierce
part of the
Brosnan
gaslighting, I
James
think.
Bond, and that was more of a comic book Bond. But my mom watched the Sean Connery Bond, and that was the man's man Bond.
Yeah, oh
I'll
yeah.
have a dry one.
Five no's and a
Not
yes is
stud.
still a yes.
No, that's not modern compliant. That's not modern compliant. No, now
Sean, nice
Sean
goat.
Connery would have to be like, here's your consent form. Please sign here.
Was that a Frank Caliendo one?
She reaches for the pen. No, it's not necessary.
Kahuna, was that the Frank Caliendo reference?
Goat.
I think it. It must. Yeah, that was. I forgot.
He was
where it came
talking
from.
about people with the right types of voices, and like
It's
he
like if you're
mentioned
hot,
Sean
you can get.
Connery.
If you're hot, you can get away with a lot. That's the
Yeah.
essence of it.
Frank Caliendo does so many voices. I wonder if he does any like instructionals on how he does it, because you like to do voices, and so
He's talked about it a bit in interviews. Yeah.
That's a good question. Who's the best Bond? That's going around in the chat. Redound Connery.
The best Bond is the Bond we
for
never
me, it's
got.
going to be Brosnan, because he's the one I watched when I was growing up.
I really dig Sean Connery, but honestly, what I think the potential greatest Bond we ever could have had would have been, if they did it properly, would have been Henry Cavill or Cavill. He was up for the role and then he lost it. And I'm
Wait, what about Roger Moore?
He's fine. He exists.
Roger Moore.
Who was the first
Roger
guy
Moore.
to play him?
The first one was Sean Connery.
No. There was one before him. Black
It's
and
a-
white. He went by Jimmy Bond in that version.
No, there was one guy who did Her Majesty's Secret Service, and so there's a guy prior to it wasn't black and white. That was a color movie, and that was prior to Sean Connery. I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember seeing that. It was a good movie.
Yeah, it was Casino Royale from a long time ago. I think that one was still black and white. It was the first time somebody played James Bond on live action.
I thought the only Casino Royale was a Daniel Craig version.
There's a black and white.
It's not in the same continuity. This is like before James Bond became a household name. It was the first Bond movie, but it wasn't even called James Bond. It was just called Casino Royale.
Also, whoever if anyone's read that OG story, the Casino Royale, the book, it's very grounded compared to the kind of comic cheesecake version we ended up getting in a lot of the later books and in the films. Like if you just read Casino Royale and isolate it
on a construction site.
No, and the most advanced technology there is like a blanket of tire spikes that they drop with a lever in the car. That's the most advanced technology you see.
I was wrong. It's guy's name is George Lazenby.
Okay.
Lazenby, but apparently this was after Connery. After Connery left, so it's kind of like the bridge between Roger Moore and Sean Connery.
Oh,
So I thought that movie came before Bond, but apparently.
Yeah.
Now get
I
this:
really like,
Moonraker is out of continuity.
I hate Moonraker. I really like License to Kill with Timothy Dalton, though. That was a good one.
I really liked Goldmember. That was my favorite.
Oh, yes.
No, but seriously,
There was an unfortunate smelting accident. Everybody leave except for you in the back. Yes, you.
There are two
There's
things I
only
hate in
two
this
kinds
world.
of people I hate.
Yep.
Intolerant people and the Dutch.
But Moonraker actually was not in continuity with the others. Yes, Sean Connery played him in that one, but that was a different studio, not part of the same brand that all the big Bond movies were part of. So.
Okay.
Roger
So,
Moore.
Wow,
Actually,
look at the
doesn't
size of
have
that.
anything to do with
Johnson,
that.
get over here. Man, have you ever seen Mr. Big? Peter, come take a look at this.
I think Roger Moore is my least favorite. He's always been my least favorite. I never
Craig.
liked him.
Daniel Craig, I don't.
No, he
Daniel
doesn't.
Daniel Craig is closer to Sean Connery than any of the other Bonds.
Yeah, but
Fine.
I didn't
He's
like
got a
his
very-
story.
Ma- Majid, I don't like the way they
the
directed.
first movie.
I don't like how they directed some of the Daniel Craig movies, but I don't think Daniel Craig was the problem.
No,
No,
was
it's just the story
Kahuna,
itself.
That's exactly right. I agree with you, Kahuna.
100%. I agree.
And I think that I'm probably in retrospect, in the fullness of time, I'm going to say Pierce Brosnan. I probably agree with is probably the best, but I liked Timothy Dalton a lot. Obviously, Sean Connery's the GOAT. But I like Daniel Craig, but for some reason, Roger Moore just did not work for me. He wasn't manly enough for me.
I
don't
can't
know why.
remember who. There was one that didn't work, and it's been so long since I've seen it. I'm not sure who it was now. But I do remember there was one in particular. I was like, that's not a good Bond.
Who was the TV Bond? I didn't like him. The one for the TV show.
What TV show?
James
What
Bond
TV show?
Jr. Maybe.
No,
That's
I
the
thought
only
there was a
Bond
The
mini
show I
Adventures
TV
of
remember.
Young James Bond?
No, there was.
No.
It was called James Bond Jr. It was a cartoon show in the late '80s, early '90s.
Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh, has anyone seen that picture comparing Ben Shapiro to Dylan Mulvaney and how they look exactly
Oh
the
yeah,
same?
that was so weird.
You know, you never see them in the same room at the same time.
So the thing is, when you really look at it,
But hey, that's just a theory.
King Bob, is that the name you were trying to remember? Timothy Dalton.
Evelette, you may be right, but I don't want to hear it.
No, Dalton had more movies. I think it was was it Lasbury or something like that?
Yeah, that's
Well, he had mentioned in one of his comments there was a Bond name he was forgetting, and that might have been it.
Yeah, because he was in one movie, and the movie was horrible, and they had to go back with Connery for another film.
Yeah, that was the His Majesty's Secret Service, and it had Diana Rigg and Kelly Savalas.
George Lazenby.
Yeah, I just said that not too long ago.
Oh, Herman, that your best friend on Twitter, who you definitely weren't fighting with today.
Yeah.
I responded to a post about that as well. Except this may epitomize the reasons why I don't do live debates. How can someone be this brain dead or twisted ideologically? It makes me feel better about my own intelligence.
You should have spelled.
I spelled it that way. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
So I think my favorite Bond movie is probably is GoldenEye.
That's a great movie. I actually Skyfall. It came out. It's a bit nostalgic for me, but that may be my favorite. I really liked that movie.
Which Bond game had Willem Dafoe as the villain?
What?
Yeah, there's.
I
a
think
Bond
it was
game with Willem
GoldenEye.
Dafoe as the villain.
Was that him?
The 64 one, isn't it?
No, he's not that old.
Nintendo 64 isn't that old.
They're talking about the game, not the movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
It was a game. I forgot which one it was, but Willem Dafoe was the villain in the game.
He is so good at being a villain.
My favorite villain is Random Task. Instead of Austin Powers. Anybody?
I love that movie. There was an unfortunate smelting accident.
Oh, well, I think mine was a fat bastard.
Fat bastard. Fat bastard. What the hell?
I took some inspiration.
Evacuation.
From Austin Powers.
My biggest disappointment was we never got an Austin Powers and Man of Disguises crossover, Master of Disguises, because it would have been Mike Myers. And
he'd be playing what? Master of Disguise.
It was so annoying. The only thing I remember about that movie
Maji, get out.
Turtle.
That's all I know about it from the preview. I never saw the movie.
I'm not turtling enough for the Turtle Club.
I just want to see those two crossover because it was Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. Wayne's World. Because if they did a crossover, the Master Disguises would dress them up as Wayne and Garth at some point.
If they did a crossover, Michael Myers would be playing 37 characters.
King Bob, I think it was a PlayStation 2 and an Xbox game.
What?
remember correctly.
What game?
The James Bond one I'm thinking of.
Who is the Iron Age equivalent of James Bond?
Do we
It's not-
have one?
It's
I
not
don't
really
know that
Iron
we
Age,
do
but
yet.
like I would say for me, because I love James Bond, but I would say the only game in town right now is Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible series.
Yeah.
But like, and I love Ethan Hunt's character. I
Oh.
love all those movies except the first one. I hate the first one. But,
I agree
The
with
first
King
one is
Bob
the
on
first
this
one is painful to watch a little bit after the quality of the preceding films.
But you know what's interesting about Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible movies is that it's his moral code that makes me like him so much. Because like he's got this James Kirk sort of he doesn't believe in a no-win scenario attitude. Like I can win, I can do the mission and save my team and save the day, and
But
I kind of love that. I love that about him.
did you ever see that forgotten script? Like there was another script idea they had for the second one. It was going to be Ethan Hunt and his brother Mike.
I never heard of that. No.
Oh, by the way, I figured out what the name of the game is. James Bond 007, Everything or Nothing.
You know what I liked was what was the what's the one with crap? It wasn't
Kingsman?
McDowell.
The
It's
first
guy who-
Kingsman I thought was a good Bond.
Jonathan Pryce. Jonathan Pryce plays
Oh.
this media mogul who's trying to control everything. It was kind of dopey, but it was like the second Pierce Brosnan one, I think.
Was Charlie's Angels Bond like?
It was cheesy, but not in any other way. I don't think.
My favorite.
Like
Die
it's
Another
spy-ish.
Day or not?
That's-
Or
No, it was the one before that, I think.
Thank you, Evelay. I appreciate it. I'm glad someone got my bad joke.
I personally like the Johnny English series.
Oh, that was funny.
Oh yeah.
I like for being a modern kind of version of it. I thought Kingsman was a fun movie, the first one anyway.
It was good up until the very ending scene. With
It has some really good scenes and then some really kind of scenes.
Oh, son of a freaking Samuel L. Jackson in that movie.
Tomorrow Never Dies. That was it. That was the one. Tomorrow Never Dies. I liked that one.
That sounds like a Live Free or Die Hard like title for one of
well,
those
here's
films.
the thing: the Pierce Brosnan James Bond was very comic book like.
Excuse
The
me,
villains
Margie?
were the gadgets were.
Fucking
but-
drop it.
Dude, Sean Bean as Alex Trevelyan, like that. What as 006? That was such a great character in GoldenEye. But
I
was
did
it comic
I
booky?
did like how
think
it came
got
down
that
to
way.
a personal vendetta between the two over the moral code.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that maybe is why. Like at first, I like Casino Royale. I like Skyfall. Quantum of Solace was kind of a mixed bag. Everything after that point is awful. But I did like Casino Royale because of the idea of like let's do a less comic book James Bond that's a little more grounded. But he still had all the trappings of a James Bond. Like he's confident, he's cocky. But the problem is like they
He was
really
a little more. He
screwed
was
up.
a little more.
I
Tragic.
truly enjoyed the parkour scene.
That was great, but they really screwed up with Lashif because he was such an interesting character played by Mads Mikkelsen, and he just gets killed like a chump, like in the middle of the big payoff scene of him versus Bond. I'm like, what the hell?
It happens that way in the book too. It's it's a little anticlimactic. Like that book. It's a weird book, but like, dude, if anyone hasn't read it, try reading that book for like with fresh eyes. Like, try to go in imagining you've never absorbed anything Bond, and it's
However,
it's a good ride.
You have to find the books that are 10 years or older now.
yeah, because they're changing.
Yeah.
King-
It's like
Kingsman-
it's like when I was looking to buy a copy of Frankenstein. They're like, which version would you like? I'm like, explain.
Same with
as long as that-
Outsiders.